It is true that each of us could see in our own identity all the reasons we're misunderstood and then say, you don't understand me because you haven't walked in my shoes. Something that is true as far as it goes, but it doesn't get us very far. Because we could also see in our identity the beginning of a new form of American solidarity. By recognizing that the one thing we do have in common may be the challenge of belonging in a society that sees us for what makes us all different. I'm not talking about pretending that there are equivalencies between the different patterns of exclusion in this country. I may be a part of the LGBTQ community, but being a gay man doesn't even tell me what it's like to be a trans woman of color in that same community. Let alone an undocumented mother of four, or a disabled veteran, or a displaced auto worker. But being gay, just like every other fact about me, from where I grew up to what I look like, means that I have a story. And if I look to that story, I can find the building blocks, not only for empathy, but for the impetus to action. Because the more you know about exclusion, the more you think about belonging. And we have a crisis of belonging in this country. When you do not belong, that doesn't just put you in a bad mood, it puts you in a different country. When black women are dying from maternal complications at triple the rate of white women, it means for the purposes of public health, they are living in a different country. It means that for a dreamer brought to this land at the age of 2 months old and putting herself through college without a path to citizenship, in the only place she knows, that even though she's as American as the rest of us, she finds her life playing out on paper in a different country. Or when a disabled person is discriminated against in employment opportunities, it is as though he is in a different country than the rest of us. And yes, when an auto worker, 12 years into their career, is no longer sure how to provide for their family, they're not part of the country we think of ourselves as all living in together. That's why we can't seem to get on the same page. And these divisive lines of thinking have even entered into the consciousness of my own party. Like when we're told we need to choose between supporting an auto worker and supporting a trans woman of color, without stopping to think about the fact that sometimes the auto worker is a trans woman of color, and she definitely needs all the support that she can get. The wall I worry about the most is not the president's fantasy wall on the Mexican border that's never going to get built anyway. What I worry about are the very real walls being put up between us as we get divided and carved up. Walls going up within the working class, within communities, even within families. And what every gay person has in common with every excluded person of any kind is knowing what it's like to see a wall between you and the rest of the world and wonder what it's like on the other side. I am not just like you. No two of us are alike. But each of us has a story that can either separate us or connect us to those around us. Yes, I am gay, and I am the son of an immigrant and an Army brat. And I am a husband, and I am a musician, and I am an Episcopalian, and I am a Democrat. But above all, I am running as an American. I am here to build bridges and to tear down walls. And with your help, we can tear down those walls between fellow Americans. Let's tear down the walls that went up to keep black families out of white neighborhoods with consequences for educational and health inequality as well as for income. Let's tear down the fences between women and the economy and that level playing field everyone's talking about. Let's tear down the walls around our democracy put up by politicians who came to the conclusion that their side will win if fewer people can vote. Let's tear down the fencing off of more and more of our economy from organizing, because big corporations shouldn't need a safe space away from workers' rights in order to compete and thrive in American democratic capitalism. So I'm ready to use my story, my energy, my alliances, and yes, my privilege, to throw myself into tearing down those walls, because I know what a wall can do. But most of all, because I know how it feels to peer and then look and then see and then climb through a big hole in one of those walls, a hole knocked out by the activism of the kinds of people who are in this room. The struggle for equality, for the LGBTQ community on everything from workplace discrimination to trans service members' dignity, it doesn't compete with the other struggles of Americans yearning to get to the other side of an ugly wall. It reinforces those struggles, and it obligates all of us to do everything we can to lift one another up in the struggle. We have to be for each other, no matter what. Which is why what I have to say to a woman who simply will not stand for the 46th male president in a row, or a voter of color who is getting tired of politicians, Republican and Democratic, making promises they can't keep to their community and has decided their trust will be harder than ever to win this time around. That as much as I hope you will decide to be for me, if you don't, I am still absolutely committed to being for you. Harvey Milk talked about the us's, not just gays, but the black community, seniors, the disabled, anyone who has been marginalized or preyed upon or counted out. And the only way we'll move forward is if all of us us's rise together to meet this moment, to make our us's into a bigger us without pretending we're all the same, without needing to all be the same, in order to put it all on the line for one another. That's how we got this far, standing on the shoulders of giants. Whether it was Notre Dame's Father Ted Hesburgh linking arms with Dr. King as they sang, "We shall overcome," or the Filipino and Mexican-American farm workers striking for dignity and decent wages, influenced by Gandhi and King, supported by church groups and unions and students, and then those civil rights marchers and demonstrators whose patriotic dissent helped to inspire the era that gave rise to the resistance at Stonewall, that in turn helped to launch the arrival of LGBTQ consciousness as we know it. So yes, we're going to ask you to fight until states like my home state of Indiana finally put a hate crime law on the books, even if you're one of the handful of Americans who has somehow not yet been targeted for hate or ridicule in this administration. Just like people who look like me are going to fight for a fairer criminal justice system, even if no one in our immediate family has experienced the racial inequity in that broken system. That's why we need everybody to be there with us in the fight for the Federal Equality Act, no matter who they are. And it's why we've got to join things like Reverend William Barber's Poor People's Campaign, challenging our entire nation to lift up the poor and downtrodden. We fight for the transgender troops willing to put their lives on the line for this country for the same reason we fight for the Central American asylum seeker looking for a better life. The struggle for freedom and fairness and a better life reaches far beyond our LGBTQ experience, but our experience arms us with empathy, and it fills us with the energy to get this done. In different ways, every American struggles to experience true freedom. Every American needs real security. Every American depends on a vibrant democracy. And that's what this campaign is about. So in a room like this, I see a chance for all of us to lift each other up, to show where our country can be. and what our president can do. And I am filled, even now, with hope. Running for office is an act of hope. So is volunteering or donating or even just voting for somebody running for office. And we have great grounds for hope, even in my short lifetime. 10 years ago, the first day I set foot on a Navy base, I could not have served openly in uniform. 5 years ago, in my home state, my marriage could not have existed. And last week, if you happen to pass by a newsstand, you could have picked up a copy of Time magazine with the headline, "First Family," and a man and his husband sitting side by side. That didn't just happen. It is the fruit of struggle, political struggle, moral struggle, struggle by people with the courage to make change and faith in the ability of this country to be transformed into a more perfect union. So, human rights campaign supporters, does that not fill you with hope? Are you ready to take up the challenge of a generation and win the era for America's future? Are you ready to stand hand in hand with people just like you and people not at all like you to make this country a better place? Then I'm as hopeful as I've ever been, and I'm convinced that we can't lose. Thank you. And I'll see you on the trail. Thank you.